My daughter texted me 4 words that changed everything. Don't come to my wedding. My name is Steve Patterson. I'm 58 years old, and I spent 25 years building a business so my daughter Emma could have everything I never did. She thinks she won. $43 million. Gone. My life's work transferred to her and her husband Michael in what they called early inheritance planning. Smart girl, my Emma. Graduated Stanford with honors. But she made one critical mistake. She booked her dream wedding at Grandview Estate. $12.8 million venue. Oceanfront. 300 guests. The works. Here's what she doesn't know. I own that place. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from, because this story is going to take us places you won't expect. You see, in chess, sometimes a pawn reaches the end of the board and becomes a queen. That pawn can win the entire game. Emma thinks she cornered the king, but she forgot about that last piece on the board. This story has more twists than a Vegas poker game, and every single one of them taught me something about family, greed, and what happens when someone mistakes kindness for weakness. It started 3 months ago with a phone call I should have seen coming. Emma, calling to tell me about her engagement to Michael Thornton, corporate lawyer, charming smile, and as I would learn, absolutely no conscience. Daddy, he's perfect, she said. He understands business. He understands what our family needs. What our family needed, apparently, was for me to disappear. The wedding planning began immediately. $200,000 dress, $50,000 in flowers, $180,000 for catering. Numbers that made my head spin. But Emma assured me Michael's family had connections. Old money, she said. They know how these things should be done. I should have paid attention to how quickly Michael inserted himself into our financial conversations, how he casually mentioned tax strategies and estate planning over Sunday dinner, how he looked at me like he was calculating something every time I spoke. 3 weeks after the engagement, Emma called with a proposal. Daddy, Michael thinks we should restructure your assets, for tax purposes. Get everything set up properly for the future. The future. She made it sound like I was already dead. I trusted her. That was my first mistake. I trusted him. That was my second. But Emma doesn't know everything about her father, and she's about to learn that some lessons cost more than others. The venue booking came through my office 2 days after that text message. Don't come to my wedding. But the deposit check was made out to Grandview Properties LLC, my company, my rules. And that's when I realized something. This game wasn't over. Let me tell you how we got here. 25 years ago, I was broke, divorced, living in a studio apartment in downtown Portland, working construction while fighting for custody of my 5-year-old daughter. Emma's mother, Linda, had remarried a tech executive. Big house in the hills, private schools, everything I couldn't give my little girl. She needs stability, Steve, Linda told me during one of our custody hearings. Not weekend adventures with a man who can't keep a steady job. That hurt, but it also lit a fire. I spent every evening after work studying real estate law, property management, construction contracts. I saved every penny, bought a foreclosed property in 1999, a rundown inn near the coast. Spent 3 years renovating it myself, working 16-hour days. Emma visited on weekends. She was 8 when I showed her the plans for what would become Grandview Estate. It's going to be beautiful, Daddy, she said, tracing her finger over my sketch drawings. People will want to have their weddings here. That's the plan, sweetheart. Everything I build is for you. She believed in me when no one else did. That little girl would sit on paint buckets, eating peanut butter sandwiches, while I explained load-bearing walls and foundation repair. She understood business before she understood algebra. By the time Emma graduated high school, I owned 4 properties. By the time she finished Stanford, Grandview Properties was worth $43 million. I had joint custody, but I had her respect. She chose business school because she wanted to work with me. We're going to be partners, Daddy, she said on graduation day. Patterson and Patterson Incorporated. I was proud. I was also naive. Michael Thornton appeared in her life last spring. Corporate restructuring specialist, Harvard Law. the kind of polish that comes from generations of money and the confidence that follows. When Emma brought him to Sunday dinner, he looked around my house like he was appraising it. "Impressive operation, Mr. Patterson," he said, cutting his steak with surgical precision. "Emma tells me you started from nothing." There was something in the way he said nothing that made my jaw tighten, but Emma was glowing. "Michael's helped 3 other families streamline their holdings," she told me, "save them millions in taxes." Over the next few months, Michael became a regular fixture at our family meetings. He had opinions about everything: my investment strategy, my property management, my estate planning, always couched in concern for Emma's future. "Your father's worked hard," he would tell Emma when he thought I couldn't hear. "But his approach is old-fashioned. We need to position things properly for the next generation." The next generation. Like I was a relic. I should have seen the signs. Emma started using words like optimization and restructuring, and she questioned decisions I'd made for 20 years. She brought Michael to meetings with my accountant, my lawyer, my property managers. "Daddy, we need to think strategically," she said during one particularly tense conversation about a potential acquisition. "Michael's shown me how we could triple our ROI with the right structure." Triple our ROI. My daughter was speaking a language I'd taught her, but with an accent I didn't recognize. The engagement party was held at the country club Michael's family had belonged to for 4 generations. Old money families, political connections, the kind of people who measured success in generations rather than decades. I felt like an outsider at my own daughter's celebration. "Steve built all this from scratch," Emma announced to the crowd. "Isn't that amazing?" Amazing. Like I was a curiosity, a self-made man in a room full of inherited wealth. But I smiled and shook hands and pretended not to notice how Michael's friends looked at me, how they asked about my background with the kind of polite interest people show when they're gathering information they plan to use later. That night, driving home alone, I realized something had changed. Emma wasn't just planning a wedding. She was planning a life that didn't include much room for her father. I told myself it was normal. Children grow up. They make their own choices. They choose partners who come from different worlds. But deep down, I knew something else was happening. I just didn't know how deep it went. 3 weeks later, Emma called with Michael's tax optimization proposal. "It's really quite simple, Daddy," she explained, using that patient tone people use when they think you're too old to understand modern concepts. "We transfer the properties into a family trust. Emma and I become co-trustees. You maintain full control during your lifetime, but everything's positioned properly for succession planning." Succession planning. They were planning my succession like I was a CEO ready to retire, not a 58-year-old man in perfect health. But I signed the papers. Because I loved my daughter. Because I trusted her judgment. Because I wanted to believe that Michael Thornton was the kind of man who would protect what I'd built. That was 3 months ago. Now Emma's getting married in 6 weeks, and she doesn't want me there. But she still needs my venue. The Bank of America statement arrived on October 16th. I opened it over morning coffee, expecting the usual routine: property income, maintenance, expenses, the steady cash flow I'd built over 25 years. Instead, I found emptiness. Every account zeroed out. $43 million gone. I called the bank immediately, hands shaking as I dialed. "There must be some mistake," I told the customer service representative. "My accounts have been compromised." "Let me pull up your records, Mr. Patterson," she said. "I'm showing multiple authorized transfers initiated on October 15th. Large amounts moved to, let me see, Patterson Family Trust accounts." Patterson Family Trust. The documents I'd signed 6 weeks earlier. "Who authorized these transfers?" I asked. According to our records, the transfers were initiated by the trust co-administrators, Emma Patterson and Michael Thornton, all properly signed and notarized. My coffee mug hit the floor. I drove to the bank that afternoon, demanded to see every document. The signatures looked like mine. The notarization was legitimate. Everything appeared legal and proper, except I'd never signed those specific transfer authorizations. "Sir, I understand your concern," the bank manager explained, "but these are legally binding trust documents. Your daughter and son-in-law-to-be have full authority to manage trust assets. I'm not dead yet, I said. No, sir, but according to the trust structure, they have immediate administrative authority. This is quite common in modern estate planning. Modern estate planning. Michael's handiwork. I spent the next 2 hours reviewing every document, every clause, every paragraph of legal language that I should have read more carefully before signing. Most of it was standard trust language, protection from creditors, tax optimization, orderly succession. But buried in Section 12, subsection 4, was something I'd missed. Language that granted the successor trustees immediate operational authority over trust assets for purposes of optimization and strategic realignment. In plain English, they could move money without my permission. I called Emma immediately. "Daddy, what's wrong?" she answered. "You sound upset. $43 million is missing from my accounts." Silence. "It's not missing," she said finally. "It's protected. Michael explained this to you. The trust structure provides better tax advantages and asset protection." "I didn't authorize those specific transfers, Emma. You authorize the trust. The trust authorizes the transfers. That's how it works." The patience in her voice made my blood boil, like she was explaining basic arithmetic to a child. "Where's the money, Emma?" "In secure accounts, properly managed. Everything's fine, Daddy." "I want to see the account statements." "I'll have Michael send them over. He handles the administrative details." Michael handles the administrative details. My life's work reduced to administrative details. That evening, Michael called me directly. "Jim, Emma told me you're concerned about the trust transfers. Completely understandable. This is a big transition. My name is Steve, and I want my money back. I appreciate your concern, but the transfers are part of the optimization strategy we discussed. Everything's been moved to higher yield accounts with better asset protection features. You're actually earning more money now than before. Show me." "Of course. I'll send over all the documentation. But Steve, I need you to understand something. This kind of second-guessing undermines Emma's confidence in our financial planning. She's trying to build a secure future for our family." "Our family, not my family." "The wedding's expensive," he continued. "Emma's under a lot of stress. Maybe we could discuss your concerns after the honeymoon. Let her enjoy this special time." I hung up. The documentation arrived 2 days later. 18 pages of bank statements, investment summaries, and performance reports. All legitimate, all properly formatted, all showing that my money was indeed safely invested in various accounts under the Patterson family trust. Accounts I couldn't access, accounts controlled by Emma and Michael. I called my lawyer, Frank Morrison, not the detective, just my longtime attorney. He reviewed everything carefully. "Steve, I hate to tell you this, but everything appears to be in order. You signed these trust documents. Your daughter and her fiancé are acting within their authority." "What about the specific transfer authorizations? I never signed those." Frank pulled out his magnifying glass, studied the signatures carefully. "The handwriting looks consistent with your other signatures on file. If you're claiming forgery, we'd need a handwriting expert. That's expensive, and frankly, the burden of proof would be on you." I left Frank's office that afternoon with one thought in my mind. I'd been played, but they'd forgotten one thing. The Grandview estate deed was filed separately before the trust documents. The property transfer had never been completed because of a small clause in the original property trust. Something about requiring 90 days notice and independent legal review for venue transfers. Emma and Michael had my money, but they didn't have my venue. And Emma's wedding was in 5 weeks. I needed help, real help. Sarah Coleman's law office was 3 blocks from the courthouse. Strategic positioning for someone who specialized in elder financial abuse cases. Her reputation was solid, her fees reasonable, and most importantly, she understood how trust law could be weaponized against vulnerable seniors. "Mr. Patterson," she said, reviewing the documents I'd brought, "how much did you understand about these trust modifications when you signed them?" "I thought I was protecting Emma's inheritance. Michael explained it as tax planning." Sarah's expression darkened. "Section 12, subsection 4. This is problematic language. Most legitimate trusts don't grant successor trustees this level of immediate control. She pointed to specific clauses. This essentially allows them to manage your assets as if you're mentally incapacitated. But I'm not. No, you're not. And that's our opening. She spent an hour walking me through the legal complexities. Trust law in our state required good faith administration. If Emma and Michael were acting in their own interests rather than mine, that constituted a breach of fiduciary duty. The challenge, Sarah explained, is proving intent. We need evidence that they planned this from the beginning. Evidence. I thought about Michael's sudden appearance, his quick integration into family finances, the engagement party where his friends seemed so interested in my background. What about the timing? I asked. Engagement, trust restructure, money transfers, wedding planning, all within 3 months. Suggestive, but not conclusive. We need something concrete. And Sarah pulled out the original Grandview estate documents, studying them carefully. Now this is interesting. The property trust predates your family trust by 15 years. Different law firm, different language, different protections. She traced her finger along a specific paragraph. Section 15.3 of the Grandview Trust. Any transfer of the primary venue requires 90 days written notice to all beneficiaries, and an independent legal review to confirm the transfer serves the beneficiary's best interests. Meaning they can't touch the venue without your explicit consent in a 90-day waiting period. Your daughter may have your money, but she doesn't have your property. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Here's what we're going to do, Sarah continued. I'm filing an emergency petition to freeze all trust assets pending investigation of potential elder financial abuse. The Grandview property gives us leverage. They need your venue, but they can't access it without proper procedures. The court papers were filed that afternoon. Superior Court Case number 2024 CV 8829. Petition for Emergency Asset Protection and Trust Administration review. Emma called me at 6:30 p.m. and she wasn't happy. Daddy, what have you done? Michael just got served with legal papers. I'm protecting what's left of my assets, Emma. Your assets. Everything's in trust for your protection. We're the trustees. We're trying to help you. Help me what? Disappear? That's not fair. $43 million disappearing overnight isn't fair either. I could hear Michael's voice in the background, urgent and angry. Emma came back on the line. Michael wants to know if you've lost your mind. This lawsuit is ridiculous. Everything we've done is legal. Legal and ethical aren't always the same thing. We're trying to protect your legacy, and you're acting like we're criminals. Are you? The question hung in the air like smoke. I can't believe you just asked me that, Emma said, her voice breaking slightly. I'm your daughter. I love you. Everything I'm doing is for our family. Our family? Or your family? There's no difference. There is now. That night, Sarah called with an update. The emergency freeze was approved. All Patterson family trust accounts are frozen pending investigation. Your daughter and her fiancé can't touch a penny until we resolve the fiduciary duty questions. What about their wedding expenses? Not your problem anymore. They'll have to find another source of funding. But I knew Emma. She'd find a way to pay for the wedding. She always found a way to get what she wanted. The next morning brought a surprise. Jennifer Walsh, private investigator, called my office directly. Mr. Patterson, I've been hired by your attorney to research your daughter's fiancé. I'm calling because I think you need to know what I've found. I'm listening. Michael Thornton has done this before, twice, both times targeting older men with successful daughters. There's a pattern here that goes beyond normal gold digging. My hands tightened on the phone. Can you prove it? I'm working on it. But Mr. Patterson, I think your daughter might be a victim too. The psychological manipulation involved in these cases, it's sophisticated. Professional level. A victim. My brilliant daughter, a victim. I need everything you can find, I told her. Already on it. Give me 48 hours. That evening I drove to Grandview Estate. My venue, my property, my last piece of leverage. The estate manager, Carol, met me at the main entrance. "Mr. Patterson, we've been getting calls about the Patterson-Thornton wedding. 6 weeks out, 300 guests, premium package. But there seems to be some confusion about payment authorization." "There's no confusion. The event is on hold pending financial review." Carol's eyebrows raised. "Sir, that's a $420,000 deposit. If they can't pay, then they can't have the venue." I walked through the main ballroom where Emma planned to say her vows. 18-foot ceilings, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Pacific, hand-carved woodwork I'd restored myself 20 years ago. This was where my daughter wanted to marry the man who'd stolen my life's work. But she'd forgotten something important. You don't steal from someone in their own house. The phone rang as I locked up the venue. Emma's number. "Daddy, we need to talk." "I'm listening." "The court freeze is causing problems. Michael's family is asking questions. The wedding expenses. That's not my concern anymore. Please, can we meet? Just the three of us? We can work this out." I thought about Jennifer Walsh's words. Sophisticated manipulation, professional level. "All right," I said. "Tomorrow night, 7 p.m., your apartment." "Thank you, Daddy. I knew you'd understand." But understanding and forgiving are two different things. And I was about to understand a lot more than Emma realized. The emergency court order was just the beginning. Sarah Coleman had connections throughout the state legal system, and she used every single one of them. By Thursday morning, we had 3 separate investigations running simultaneously: the Trust Administration review, a financial elder abuse inquiry, and a preliminary fraud investigation. The beauty of the financial freeze, Sarah explained during our morning meeting, is that it forces them to show their true motivations. If they're genuinely acting in your best interests, they'll cooperate fully. If they're not, they'll panic. Exactly. Jennifer Walsh arrived at 10 a.m. with a thick folder and a grim expression. "Mr. Patterson, you need to see this." The file contained 3 years of research on Michael Thornton. Not the Harvard Law success story he'd presented, but a different picture entirely. Strategic targeting of wealthy older men through their daughters. A pattern of rushed engagements, quick trust restructures, and sudden financial control transfers. Case 1, Portland, 2019. 62-year-old restaurant owner, daughter named Lisa. Michael dated her for 4 months, engaged after 6. Father transferred restaurant chain to family trust 3 weeks before the wedding. 3 months later, restaurants were sold to a development company. Father received 20 cents on the dollar. I felt sick. Case 2, Seattle, 2021. 59-year-old marine construction contractor, daughter named Jessica. Same pattern: engagement, trust restructure, asset transfers. Father ended up in assisted living while his company was liquidated. What happened to the daughters? Lisa's marriage lasted 8 months. Jessica's lasted 6. Both divorces were finalized quietly, with the daughters receiving minimal settlements, while Michael retained control of the restructured assets through various legal mechanisms. The folder included bank records, court documents, private investigator reports, and most damning of all, dating website profiles where Michael specifically searched for women whose fathers owned substantial business assets. "He's a professional," Jennifer concluded. "This isn't opportunistic greed. This is a systematic operation." Sarah reviewed the evidence carefully. "This changes everything. We're not dealing with family conflict anymore. This is organized fraud." She immediately contacted Detective Morrison with the Portland Financial Crimes Unit. By noon, we had a criminal investigation running parallel to our civil case. "Mr. Patterson," Detective Morrison explained when he arrived that afternoon, "if what you're alleging is accurate, your daughter may be a victim of sophisticated psychological manipulation. These types of cases, we call them affinity fraud. The perpetrator gains trust through emotional relationships, then exploits those relationships for financial gain." The detective was younger than I'd expected, probably early 40s, with the kind of methodical approach that comes from working financial crimes for years. "We'll need your cooperation for a controlled operation," he continued. "Tonight's meeting at your daughter's apartment. We want you to wear a wire." A wire, like a crime drama. What am I trying to get them to admit? Anything that shows premeditation, references to the other cases, discussion of their real intentions regarding your assets. Most importantly, any indication that your daughter is being coerced or threatened. Sarah nodded approvingly. The wire recording will give us evidence for both criminal prosecution and to demonstrate that Emma's decision-making has been compromised. That evening, I drove to Emma's apartment wearing a tiny recording device taped to my chest. Detective Morrison and his team were parked 3 blocks away, monitoring the conversation in real time. Emma's apartment was in the Pearl District. Expensive, modern, the kind of place that screamed new money. Michael answered the door, his usual confident smile looking slightly strained. "Steve, come in. Emma's finishing dinner preparations." The apartment was immaculate. No personal touches, no photos of Emma's childhood, no mementos from our family history, just expensive furniture and architectural magazines. Emma appeared from the kitchen, looking exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, tension in her shoulders I'd never seen before. "Hi, Daddy." She hugged me, and I felt how thin she'd gotten. "You look tired, sweetheart." "Wedding planning is stressful," Michael interjected smoothly. "Plus, all this legal confusion you've created. It's been hard on her." We sat in their minimalist living room, and Michael immediately took control of the conversation. "Steve, I think we can resolve this misunderstanding quickly. The trust restructure was designed to protect your assets and optimize Emma's inheritance. Everything we've done serves your long-term interests. My accounts are empty. Your accounts are secure. There's a difference." "Show me." Michael produced a laptop, pulled up several financial statements. The numbers were impressive. Higher yields, diversified investments, professional management fees. "Your money is working harder now than it ever did in simple savings accounts. We've increased your net worth by 12% in 3 months." "But I can't access it." "You don't need to access it. The trust provides for all your current living expenses, plus a generous discretionary allowance." Emma spoke for the first time. "Daddy, Michael's financial planning has secured our family's future. Why are you fighting something that benefits everyone?" Something in her tone wasn't right. Too rehearsed. Too careful. "Emma, can I speak with you privately for a moment?" Michael's expression tightened slightly. "I don't think that's necessary. We're all family here." "Emma's my daughter. I'd like a moment alone with her." "Of course," Emma said, standing quickly. "Let's go to the kitchen." In the kitchen, away from Michael's immediate presence, Emma's facade cracked slightly. "Daddy, please, just accept the trust arrangement. It's better for everyone." "Better how?" "It just is. Michael knows things about finance that we don't. He's protecting us." "Us or him?" Emma's hands were shaking slightly. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. The wedding, the families, the expectations. Michael's family has standards." "What kind of standards require stealing from your father?" "We didn't steal anything." Her voice was sharp, defensive. "Everything's legal. Everything's proper. The lawyers reviewed everything." "His lawyers?" "Our lawyers." But she couldn't meet my eyes when she said it. We returned to the living room where Michael was reviewing more financial documents. "I hope you've helped Steve understand the situation," he said to Emma. "We need to present a unified front to resolve this legal confusion." "The legal confusion," I said, "is that I can't access money earned." "You can access it. Through proper channels, with appropriate oversight. Steve, at your age, these kinds of financial protections are standard." "At my age. I was 58, not 88. What happens if I refuse to drop the lawsuit?" Michael's smile became colder. "That would be unfortunate, for everyone. The legal fees alone would consume significant trust assets. Emma's wedding would be compromised. Family relationships would be permanently damaged." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining consequences. Adult decisions have adult consequences." Emma looked between us, her anxiety palpable. "Daddy, please, just trust us. Trust me." As I left the apartment that evening, one thing was clear. Emma was scared of something. But whether she was scared of losing Michael or scared of what Michael might do, I couldn't tell. The wire recording would reveal which one. Detective Morrison called me at 11 p.m. "We got enough. Michael's threats about consequences, the references to controlling trust assets, the implications that you're too old to manage your own money, all admissible evidence of financial elder abuse. What about Emma? She's definitely being manipulated. The trembling, the rehearsed responses, the fear when you ask to speak privately. Classic signs of psychological coercion. Jennifer Walsh had found the smoking gun we all needed. Now it was time to find out how deep this conspiracy went. The confrontation came sooner than expected. Friday morning, Michael called my office directly. His voice was different, harder, more aggressive. "Steve, we need to settle this today. The court freeze is creating problems that go beyond our family." "What kind of problems?" "The kind that require immediate resolution. Meet me at my office this afternoon, 2 o'clock. Come alone." His office was on the 40th floor of the U.S. Bancorp Tower, all glass and steel with views of the Willamette River. Corporate law at its most intimidating. Michael's secretary led me to his private conference room, where he was waiting with 2 other men in expensive suits. No introductions were offered. "Steve, sit down. We have a proposition." I remained standing. "I'm listening." "Drop the lawsuit. Accept the trust arrangement as structured. In return, Emma's wedding proceeds as planned, and we establish a generous monthly allowance for your personal expenses." "How generous?" $20,000 per month. I almost laughed. I'm supposed to live on $20,000 per month from money I earned? You're supposed to live comfortably while professionals manage assets you're no longer equipped to handle properly. No longer equipped? One of the other men spoke for the first time. "Mr. Patterson, recent financial decisions suggest declining cognitive capacity. The lawsuit against your own daughter, the paranoid accusations, the inability to understand modern trust structures. Who are you?" "Dr. Harrison Webb, geriatric psychiatrist. I've reviewed your recent behavior patterns." "A psychiatrist?" They'd brought a psychiatrist to declare me mentally incompetent. "Based on reports from family members and financial advisors, you're showing classic signs of age-related decision-making impairment, not uncommon in men your age facing complex family transitions." The trap was complete. Refuse their offer, and they'd claim I was mentally unstable. Accept their offer, and I'd be admitting I couldn't manage my own affairs. "What happens if I refuse?" Michael's smile returned. "We petition the court to appoint a guardian for your financial affairs. Dr. Webb's evaluation would support that petition. Emma, as your only family member, would likely be appointed guardian. With you as advisor? With me as attorney and financial consultant, yes." They had it all planned out. Every angle covered, every escape route blocked. Except one. "I need time to consider this." "You have until Monday morning. After that, we file the competency petition." I left the building feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. They weren't just stealing my money. They were stealing my identity, my dignity, my right to make my own decisions. But they'd made one critical mistake. That evening, I drove to Grandview Estate. My property, my rules. Carol, the estate manager, met me with concerning news. "Mr. Patterson, we've been getting calls from the Patterson-Thornton wedding party. They're asking about payment schedules, vendor authorizations, setup permissions. The bride's mother called this afternoon asking about security deposits." "Bride's mother?" "Mrs. Thornton. Michael's mother. She wanted to confirm catering arrangements." Michael's mother was handling wedding arrangements. Another piece of the puzzle. "Carol, I need you to do something for me. Any calls regarding the Patterson-Thornton wedding go directly to me. No vendor authorizations, no setup permissions, no access to the property without my personal approval." "Sir, they have a contract. They have a tentative booking, but the deposit has not cleared because the accounts are frozen. No payment, no contract." Saturday morning brought unexpected visitors. Emma and Michael arrived at my house unannounced, both looking grim. "Daddy, we need to talk," Emma said as I opened the door. They walked into my living room like they owned it. Michael immediately began surveying the space, calculating again. "Steve, yesterday's meeting didn't go as smoothly as we hoped," Michael said. "Perhaps we need to reconsider our approach." "What approach is that?" "The approach that preserves family relationships while resolving financial concerns." Emma sat on the edge of my couch, wringing her hands. Daddy, Michael's been explaining things to me about the trust, about your reactions, about what's best for everyone. What's he been explaining? That sometimes when people get older, they become suspicious of people trying to help them. It's normal. It's not your fault. Michael's handiwork. He'd convinced my daughter that I was losing my mental capacity. Emma, do I seem mentally incompetent to you? She hesitated. You seem different, angry, paranoid. You're suing your own family over money. I'm protecting myself from theft. It's not theft, her voice cracked. Michael loves me. Michael loves our family. Everything he's doing is legal and proper and in our best interests. Our best interests, or his, Michael stood abruptly. That's enough. Steve, you're upsetting Emma with these conspiracy theories. Dr. Webb was right. You're showing clear signs of paranoid ideation. Get out of my house. Excuse me? You heard me. Get out. Emma stood too, tears in her eyes. Daddy, please. Don't make me choose between my father and my fiancé. I'm not making you choose anything. He is. Michael put his arm around Emma's shoulders possessively. Come on, sweetheart. Your father needs time to process Dr. Webb's evaluation. We'll revisit this conversation when he's had a chance to consider his options more rationally. As they headed toward the door, Michael turned back. Steve, the competency hearing is scheduled for Tuesday morning if you don't accept our settlement offer. I'd hate to see Emma testify about your recent behavior, but she'll do what's necessary to protect your best interests. After they left, I called Detective Morrison immediately. They're accelerating the timeline, I told him. Competency hearing Tuesday. They want to have me declared mentally incompetent. We expected this. Financial predators always escalate when they feel cornered. The good news is that we have enough evidence now for criminal charges. What about Emma? She's been thoroughly manipulated. The psychological conditioning involved here is sophisticated. Michael's convinced her that protecting him means protecting you. That evening, Sarah Coleman called with updates on the civil case. The court has granted our motion for expanded discovery. We can now subpoena Michael's financial records, his client history, his communications with your daughter, plus the criminal investigation gives us additional leverage. How much time do we have? Until Tuesday morning. But Steve, I need to prepare you for the possibility that Emma might testify against you at the competency hearing. Michael's psychological control is strong, and she genuinely believes she's protecting you. Sunday passed in a blur of legal preparation and strategic planning, but Sunday evening brought a call that changed everything. Mr. Patterson, this is Carol from Grandview Estate. I'm sorry to bother you, but there's been an incident. What kind of incident? Someone broke into the estate tonight. The main ballroom has been vandalized. Windows broken, equipment damaged. Security cameras were disabled. How much damage? Significant. Probably $200,000 in repairs needed. Any idea who did this? Well, sir, that's the strange part. Whoever did this knew the security systems. They knew exactly which cameras to disable and which alarms to avoid. This wasn't random vandalism. Michael's desperation was showing, but he'd just made his final mistake. Breaking into my property was a felony, and desperate men make careless decisions. The game was about to change completely. The photos arrived Monday morning. Federal Express envelope, no return address, delivered to my office at 9 a.m. sharp. Inside were 8 photographs and a single typed note. The photos showed me leaving the bank, meeting with Sarah Coleman, talking to Detective Morrison. Someone had been following me for weeks, documenting every conversation, every meeting, every step of my investigation. The note was brief. Drop all legal actions by 5 p.m. today, or these photos and your medical records go to every major newspaper in the state. Your choice. My medical records. How had they gotten my medical records? I called Dr. Harrison Webb's office immediately, demanding to speak with him directly. Dr. Webb, this is Steve Patterson. I understand you've been reviewing my medical information without my consent. Mr. Patterson, I'm not at liberty to discuss patient evaluations over the phone. I'm not your patient. According to the family consultation request filed by your daughter, you are subject to evaluation for guardianship proceedings. Family consultation request. Emma had authorized a psychiatrist to review my medical history for evidence of mental incompetence. What medical records did you review? I'm not at liberty to discuss specific details, but your recent behavior patterns suggest significant cognitive decline requiring immediate intervention. I hung up and immediately called my family physician, Dr. Marcus Chen. Wait, no. I needed to use approved names. Dr. Michael Stevens. Doc, this is Steve. I need to know if anyone's requested my medical records recently. Steve, I was hoping you'd call. Yes, we received a records request last week. Signed authorization from Emma, requesting all medical history for the past 5 years. I assumed it was related to your estate planning. What did you send them? Standard medical history. Physical exams, test results, routine procedures. But Steve, there was something odd. The request specifically asked for any documentation related to cognitive function, memory issues, or psychiatric consultations. They were building a case for incompetence using my own medical records. Routine doctor visits twisted into evidence of mental decline. But I'd never had memory issues or psychiatric consultations. My medical records would actually support my competence, not undermine it, unless they were altered. The realization hit me like ice water. If Michael could manipulate bank documents and trust paperwork, he could manipulate medical records too. I called Sarah Coleman immediately, explained the blackmail attempt. Steve, this is actually good news. Blackmail is a felony, and it shows they're desperate enough to commit additional crimes. Detective Morrison needs to see those photos. But when I called Detective Morrison, his response was troubling. Mr. Patterson, I need to tell you something. The DA's office is getting pressure to drop the criminal investigation. What kind of pressure? Political pressure. Michael Thornton's family has connections. Old Portland money, major campaign contributors, city council relationships. There are people who don't want this case to proceed. Are you dropping it? I'm not. But my captain is asking hard questions about resource allocation and probability of conviction. The fix was in. Michael's family connections were protecting him from criminal prosecution. That afternoon brought worse news. Carol called from Grandview Estate with an update on the break-in investigation. Mr. Patterson, the insurance company is refusing to cover the damage. Why? They're claiming it was an inside job, someone with access codes, security knowledge, and keys to the building. Since you're the only person with that level of access, they're suggesting I vandalized my own property. Yes, sir, as evidence of mental instability. The web was tightening. Every move I made was being turned against me. Every defensive action twisted into evidence of incompetence. But the worst was yet to come. Emma called at 4:30 p.m., crying, Daddy, I don't want to do this, but Michael says I have to protect you from yourself. Do what, Emma? The competency hearing tomorrow. I have to testify about your behavior, about the paranoid accusations, the lawsuit, the property damage. I didn't damage the property. Michael says you did. He says people with cognitive decline sometimes act out in ways they don't remember. He says you need help. Emma, listen to me carefully. Michael's lying to you about everything. He's stolen our money, manipulated our family, and now he's trying to have me declared mentally incompetent so he can control everything permanently. That's not true. Michael loves me. Michael loves our family. Michael loves money. You're just the way he gets to it. Stop it, she screamed. Stop these crazy conspiracy theories. You're sick, Daddy. You need help. Dr. Webb explained everything to me. What did he explain? That financial paranoia is common in early-stage dementia. That your accusations are symptoms, not facts. That fighting treatment will only make things worse. They had her completely convinced. My own daughter believed I was mentally ill. Emma, if I'm so mentally impaired, how did I build a $43 million business? You built it when you were younger. People change as they age. It's not your fault. Have you seen any actual evidence of mental decline? Forgotten conversations? Confusion about current events? Inability to manage daily tasks? Silence. Emma? Michael says that's not how it works. He says people in denial can seem normal to family members who don't want to see the truth, Michael says. Everything came back to Michael says. That evening, I sat in my home office reviewing the legal documents, the financial records, the evidence Jennifer Walsh had compiled. Everything pointed to a sophisticated fraud operation. Everything except Emma's testimony. Tomorrow morning, my daughter would testify in court that I was mentally incompetent. Her testimony, combined with Dr. Webb's psychiatric evaluation and the mysterious property damage, might be enough to convince a judge to appoint a guardian for my affairs. Michael Thornton would win. He'd get control of $43 million plus Grandview Estate. He'd marry Emma, then divorce her after consolidating his control over the assets. And I'd spend the rest of my life as a ward of the state, my daughter convinced I was mentally ill. The perfect crime. But sitting in my office, surrounded by 25 years of business records and legal documents, I remembered something Emma had said earlier. People with cognitive decline sometimes act out in ways they don't remember. If I didn't remember damaging the property, that would mean I had blackouts. Memory lapses, clear evidence of mental impairment. Except I did remember Saturday night. Every minute of it. I'd been home, reviewing legal documents, preparing for the competency hearing, which meant someone else had damaged the property Saturday night. Someone with access codes and security knowledge. Someone like Michael, who'd studied Grandview Estate extensively during the wedding planning process. The break-in wasn't random vandalism or evidence of my mental instability. It was a deliberate false flag operation designed to support the incompetence narrative. And if Michael had staged the break-in, there would be evidence. Security cameras he might have missed. Forensic evidence he might have overlooked. Most importantly, there would be timeline evidence. If I could prove I was somewhere else when the vandalism occurred, the incompetence theory would collapse. I called Detective Morrison one more time. Detective, I need you to investigate the Grandview Estate break-in as a potential false flag operation. Michael Thornton had access to the property during wedding planning. He could have disabled the security systems and staged the damage to support his incompetence claims. Steve, that's a serious accusation. So is having an innocent Meton declared mentally incompetent through fraud and manipulation. Give me 12 hours. I'll have the crime scene unit re-examine the evidence. 12 hours. The competency hearing was in 18 hours. But sometimes 12 hours is enough to change everything. If I was right about the false flag operation, Michael Thornton had just made the mistake that would destroy him. The hunter was about to become the hunted. Detective Morrison called at 6 a.m. Tuesday morning, 3 hours before the competency hearing. Steve, you were right. Crime scene found fresh tire tracks behind the estate that don't match your vehicle. Plus, the security system was disabled using an administrative override code that wasn't available to general contractors. Meaning someone with extensive knowledge of the system did this. And we found something else. Paint transfer on the broken glass that matches the color of Michael Thornton's BMW. Is that enough to stop the hearing? It's enough to arrest Michael Thornton for vandalism and false reporting, which should raise serious questions about his credibility. Well, the arrest happened at 8:15 a.m., 45 minutes before the competency hearing was scheduled to begin. Michael was taken into custody at his office, in front of his colleagues and clients. Sarah Coleman called me immediately. The hearing's been postponed pending investigation of new evidence. The judge wants to review the criminal charges before proceeding with guardianship matters. What about Emma? She's at the courthouse, hysterical. She can't understand why Michael was arrested. She's convinced there's been some mistake. I drove to the courthouse immediately. Emma was in the hallway outside the courtroom, crying and confused. When she saw me, she ran over. Daddy, they arrested Michael. They think he vandalized your property. This is insane. Emma, sit down. We sat on a bench in the hallway, and for the first time in months, it was just my daughter and me. Sweetheart, I need you to think carefully about everything that's happened over the past few months. The engagement, the trust restructure, the money transfers, the wedding planning. Does any of it seem rushed to you? Michael said we needed to move quickly for tax reasons. Tax reasons don't require stealing $43 million. He didn't steal it. It's protected. Protected from whom? Protected from me? Emma was quiet for a long moment. Daddy, are you really sick? Dr. Webb said. Dr. Webb never examined me. He reviewed medical records and made assumptions based on information from Michael. But the property damage? Michael did that. The police have evidence. That's impossible. Michael was with me Saturday night. What time? Emma thought carefully. We had dinner with his parents. Left their house around 10:30. Got to my apartment around 11. The security system was disabled at 9:45 p.m. The vandalism occurred between 10 p.m. and 10:30 p.m. But that means Michael left his parents' house early, drove to Grandview Estate, damaged the property, then came to your apartment. Emma's face went pale. Why would he do that? To make me look mentally unstable, to support the incompetence claim. For the first time in months, I saw doubt in Emma's eyes. Detective Morrison approached us with an update. Mr. Patterson, we've got Michael in interrogation. He's demanding his lawyer, but he made some interesting statements during booking. What kind of statements? He kept asking if Emma was safe. Not if she was okay, but if she was safe. That's an odd concern for someone who just got arrested for vandalism. Emma looked confused. Safe from what? That's what we'd like to know, Detective Morrison said. Emma, would you be willing to answer some questions about your relationship with Michael? I don't understand what's happening. I know this is difficult, the detective said gently, but we've been investigating a pattern of financial elder abuse targeting families like yours. Your father may not be the first victim. Over the next hour, Detective Morrison walked Emma through the same evidence Jennifer Walsh had shown me, the pattern of targeting wealthy older men through their daughters. The rushed engagements and quick financial restructuring, the previous victims who'd lost everything. Lisa Martinez in Portland 2019, he explained. Jessica Thompson in Seattle 2021. Both daughters of successful businessmen. Both engaged to Michael Thornton within 6 months of meeting him. Both watched their fathers lose their life savings through trust manipulation. Emma listened in growing horror. Where are Lisa and Jessica now? She asked. Lisa works as a barista in Portland. Jessica moved back in with her mother in Spokane. Both divorces were finalized with minimal settlements for the women. But Michael loves me. Michael loves what you represent. Access to your father's wealth. Sarah Coleman joined us with legal updates. The DA has agreed to expand the investigation based on the pattern evidence. Michael's being held on charges of vandalism, fraud, and elder financial abuse. No bail until the hearing tomorrow. What happens to the wedding? Emma asked weakly. There is no wedding, I said gently. Not anymore. Emma broke down completely then, the weight of manipulation and betrayal crushing down on her. For the first time in months, she was seeing clearly. Daddy, I'm so sorry. I believed him. I trusted him. I turned against you because he convinced me you were sick. You're not responsible for being manipulated by a professional con artist. But I chose him over you. You chose what you thought was best for our family. That shows good intentions, even if you were working with bad information. Detective Morrison received a call that changed everything. That was the crime lab. Michael's phone records show calls to Dr. Webb starting 3 weeks before the psychiatric evaluation was requested. They were planning this incompetent strategy from the beginning. The trap was complete. Michael Thornton had orchestrated an elaborate fraud scheme, convinced my daughter to participate unwittingly, and nearly succeeded in having me declared mentally incompetent. But his desperation had led to careless mistakes. The property vandalism, the phone records, the pattern of previous victims. Now it was time for the final confrontation, and this time, Emma would be on my side. The confrontation happened where it all began. Grandview Estate. Michael made bail Wednesday afternoon, his family's connections securing his temporary freedom pending trial. His first call was to Emma, demanding a meeting to clear up the misunderstandings. Detective Morrison suggested we use the meeting to get additional evidence with Emma wearing a wire. If he's truly desperate, the detective explained, he might admit to things he wouldn't confess in court. Emma agreed immediately. I need to hear him explain this himself. I need to know if anything we had was real. We arranged to meet Thursday evening at Grandview Estate, neutral ground where I could control the environment and Detective Morrison's team could provide backup if needed. Emma arrived first, visibly nervous but determined. She was wearing the wire recording device, and two unmarked police vehicles were positioned discreetly around the property. Michael arrived at 6 p.m. sharp, driving his BMW with the paint transfer evidence that had helped expose his vandalism. He looked confident, like he still believed he could manipulate the situation. "Emma, sweetheart," he said, embracing her in the estate's main lobby. "This has all been a terrible misunderstanding." "Has it?" Emma asked, her voice steadier than I'd expected. "Of course. Your father's paranoid accusations led to a rush to judgment. The police will realize their mistakes soon enough." I emerged from the manager's office where I'd been waiting. "Michael." "Steve, I'm glad you're here. We need to settle this like adults." "I agree. Let's settle it." We moved into the main ballroom, the same room where Emma had planned to marry him in 2 weeks. The damaged windows had been boarded up, evidence of Michael's desperation. "This vandalism," Michael said, gesturing at the damage, "obviously this is evidence of the mental health issues we've been concerned about. Steve, no rational person would destroy their own property." "You're right," I said. "No rational person would." Emma stepped forward. "Michael, I need you to explain something to me." "Of course, darling." "The police showed me records of your relationships with Lisa Martinez and Jessica Thompson. Women whose fathers lost their businesses after trusting you with financial planning." Michael's confident expression flickered slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Lisa Martinez, Portland, 2019. Restaurant chain owner's daughter. You dated her for 4 months, got engaged, restructured her father's assets, then divorced her 8 months later." "Emma, you're obviously upset and confused." "Jessica Thompson, Seattle, 2021. Marine contractor's daughter. Same pattern, same outcome." Michael's face hardened. "Those were completely different situations. Unrelated business consulting arrangements." "Business consulting?" Emma's voice rose. "You were engaged to both of them." "Sweetheart, you're being manipulated by your father's paranoid fantasies." "Am I?" Emma pulled out printed bank records. "Because Detective Morrison showed me something interesting. Money transfers from the Patterson Family Trust to accounts you control. Not investment accounts, personal accounts." Michael's composure finally cracked. "You don't understand modern financial structures." "I understand theft. It's not theft. Everything I've done is legal, perfectly legal." "Legal isn't the same as ethical," I said. Michael spun toward me, his mask dropping completely. "Ethics? You want to lecture me about ethics? You built your business exploiting working-class contractors while pretending to be one of them." "I built my business through hard work and honest dealing. You built your business through luck and timing. Old Portland money families have been doing this for generations. I just streamlined the process." Emma stared at him. "Streamlined the process? You're talking about stealing from families." "I'm talking about redistributing wealth from people too stupid to protect it to people smart enough to optimize it." The recording device was capturing every word. "So you admit you targeted my father through me?" Emma asked. Michael laughed bitterly. "Emma, you were perfect. Smart enough to understand financial concepts, naive enough to trust romantic manipulation, and most importantly, positioned to influence your father's decision-making. You never loved me. Love is inefficient. Mutual benefit is sustainable." Emma's face went white. 3 months of my life. 3 months of believing we were building a future together. We were building a future. My future. Yours was collateral damage. That's when Detective Morrison and his team entered the ballroom. "Michael Thornton, you're under arrest for aggravated fraud, elder financial abuse, and conspiracy to commit theft." Michael didn't resist. His arrogance had finally destroyed him completely. As the detective read him his rights, Michael made one final statement. "Steve, you think you've won something here, but you've lost your daughter's trust permanently. Emma will never forgive herself for choosing me over you. That guilt will poison your relationship forever." Emma stepped forward then, facing Michael directly. "You're wrong. My father and I will rebuild our relationship because it's based on love, not manipulation. You'll spend the next decade in prison because your relationships are based on fraud." After Michael was taken away, Emma and I stood alone in the damaged ballroom. Daddy, how do we fix this? The same way we built it the first time. Together, one day at a time. The money can be recovered. Trust takes longer to rebuild, but we'll get there. I was so stupid. You were targeted by a professional con artist. That's not stupidity. That's victimization. Emma hugged me then, really hugged me, for the first time in months. I love you, Daddy. I'm sorry I doubted you. I love you too, sweetheart, and I'm proud of how you handled tonight. Detective Morrison approached with final updates. Michael's confession should make the recovery process easier. Full restitution plus criminal penalties. What about his previous victims? They'll get justice too. This case breaks open a larger pattern we've been investigating. As we left Grandview Estate that evening, Emma asked about the venue. What happens to this place? We rebuild it. Better than before. And maybe someday, if you find someone worthy of you, we'll have a real wedding here. How will I know if someone's worthy? You'll know, because now you understand the difference between love and manipulation. The truth had set us both free. Detective Morrison's call came Friday morning with news that changed everything. Steve, the FBI wants to meet with you. Michael Thornton wasn't working alone. Agent Sarah Martinez of the FBI Financial Crimes Unit arrived at my office that afternoon with a thick case file and a serious expression. Mr. Patterson, your case has exposed something much larger than individual fraud. Michael Thornton is part of an organized network targeting elderly business owners across the Pacific Northwest. She spread out photographs, financial documents, and surveillance reports across my conference table. Operation Family First has been running for 4 years. 17 victims so far, combined losses exceeding $15 million. Michael was one of 6 operatives working different territories. How does it work? Sophisticated social engineering. They identify wealthy older men with adult children, research their family dynamics, then place operatives in positions to meet and romance the children. Once they establish emotional control over the children, they manipulate family finances through legal structures that appear legitimate. The photographs showed Michael with different women in different cities, professional headshots, social media profiles, dating app pictures. He'd been playing this role for years. Dr. Harrison Webb, the psychiatrist who evaluated you, he's part of the network, provides psychological evaluation supporting incompetence claims whenever the legal manipulation faces resistance. Agent Martinez showed me Webb's record. Similar evaluations in Portland, Seattle, Spokane, Eugene, always concluding that resistance to family trust restructuring indicated cognitive decline requiring immediate intervention. The beauty of their system, she continued, is that everything appears legal. Trust documents are properly drafted, medical evaluations are professionally conducted. Family members genuinely believe they're acting in their father's best interests. What about Michael's family? The old Portland money connections? The Thornton family exists. Michael grew up in their household, but he's not their biological son. He's an adopted criminal operative placed with them as a teenager to establish legitimate identity and social connections. The FBI had been tracking the network for 2 years, but they'd never been able to get inside evidence until our wire recording of Michael's confession. Your daughter's cooperation has been invaluable. She's agreed to work with us to identify other potential victims and testify against the entire network. Emma had spent the morning at FBI headquarters reviewing case files and identifying patterns in Michael's behavior that might help protect other families. How many people are involved? I asked. At least 25 individuals across 5 states. Lawyers, doctors, financial advisors, psychiatric evaluators, even judges. This is organized crime disguised as estate planning. Agent Martinez pulled out one final document that made my blood run cold. Your case was supposed to be Michael's retirement score. $43 million would have been enough for him to disappear permanently. When you fought back, you disrupted plans that went far beyond your family. But meaning there are other families currently being targeted, right now, and your resistance may have saved them. The network had been preparing to expand operations nationwide. California, Texas, Florida. anywhere wealthy older business owners could be identified and isolated through their family relationships. What happens now? Coordinated arrests across 5 states. Your wire recording triggered search warrants for financial records, communication logs, and operational documents. We expect to make arrests starting Monday morning. That afternoon, Emma and I met with the other victims' families. Lisa Martinez, Jessica Thompson, and 3 other women whose fathers had been systematically robbed through sophisticated manipulation. The hardest part, Lisa told Emma, is realizing that none of it was real. Every conversation, every intimate moment, every shared dream, it was all calculated manipulation designed to access my father's money. How do you move on from that? Emma asked. You focus on what was real, said Jessica Thompson. Your father's love, your family's history, the relationships that matter. The FBI recovered $38 million from hidden accounts across multiple states. Not just my money, but funds stolen from other families over 4 years of operation. Full restitution for all victims, Agent Martinez assured us, plus seizure of all network assets under RICO statutes. But the most important discovery was what we found in Michael's personal files. Detailed psychological profiles of Emma and the other women, manipulation strategies specific to each relationship, and timeline charts showing exactly how he had planned to control and discard each victim. He documented everything, Emma said, reviewing her own psychological profile. My insecurities, my family loyalties, my educational background. He knew exactly which buttons to push. That's what makes this evidence so valuable in court, Agent Martinez replied. It proves premeditation and systematic exploitation. The network had made one critical mistake. They kept records. Detailed operational records that would now be used to convict them all. As we left the FBI office that evening, Emma asked the question I'd been dreading. Daddy, how do I trust anyone again? How do I know if someone's feelings are genuine? You trust carefully, you verify independently, and you remember that love doesn't require you to betray your family. Will I ever feel normal again? You'll feel stronger, and you'll be able to help other people avoid what we went through. That night, Agent Martinez called with final numbers. 17 families restored, 25 criminals arrested, $42 million recovered, and 1 network destroyed completely. Justice at scale. 6 months later, Grandview Estate hosted its first event since the arrest, the launch of the Patterson Foundation for Financial Elder Protection. Emma stood at the podium in the main ballroom, now fully restored and more beautiful than ever, addressing an audience of families, legal professionals, and law enforcement officials. Financial elder abuse destroys more than bank accounts, she said. It destroys families. It destroys trust. It destroys the relationships that give life meaning. The foundation had been Emma's idea. Use our experience and resources to educate families about sophisticated fraud schemes and provide legal support for victims. My father built this business over 25 years through hard work and integrity. Michael Thornton nearly destroyed it in 3 months through manipulation and lies. The difference was preparation and knowledge. Dr. Marcus Stevens. Wait, I needed to use approved names. Dr. Abbott. Robert Harrison, our family physician, had agreed to serve on the Foundation's medical advisory board, helping identify signs of psychological manipulation in elderly patients. Detective Morrison had taken early retirement to become our director of investigations, using his law enforcement experience to help families recognize and report financial fraud. Jennifer Walsh, the private investigator who'd exposed Michael's pattern, became our director of research, maintaining databases of known fraud schemes and suspicious individuals. Even Lisa Martinez and Jessica Thompson had joined our cause. Lisa managed victim services, helping families navigate the emotional recovery process. Jessica coordinated legal referrals, connecting victims with attorneys experienced in elder abuse cases. We can't prevent all fraud, Emma continued, but we can make it harder for criminals to succeed and easier for families to fight back. And the Foundation's first-year budget was $5 million. Money recovered from Michael's network and donated by other families who'd avoided similar schemes through our early warning systems. But the most important moment came after Emma's speech, when we stood together in the restored ballroom. "Daddy, I need to ask you something." "I'm listening." "Will you walk me down the aisle someday, when I find someone who deserves that honor?" "Sweetheart, I'll be proud to walk you down the aisle when you find someone who loves you for who you are, not what you represent." "How will I know the difference?" "You'll know because he'll want to build something with you, not take something from you. He'll strengthen your family relationships, not isolate you from them." Emma smiled, the first completely genuine smile I'd seen from her since before Michael appeared in our lives. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, Emma, and I'm proud of the woman you've become." Outside, the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly toward the horizon. Grandview Estate was more than restored. It was reborn with a new purpose. As families began arriving for the evening reception, I realized something profound. We hadn't just survived Michael Thornton's attack. We'd transformed it into protection for others. The best revenge is prevention. If you've been following this story, please share it with someone you care about. And subscribe for more stories about justice, family, and second chances. Because sometimes the pawn really does become the queen. And the game isn't over until you choose to stop playing.